when God works miracles in our life, we get excited. We get, so enthusiastic. But we need to realize that God works miracles not just to thrill us, not just to excite us, but for something more than that, for us to realize. When we look into Luke chapter 5, if you've been following us, we've been speaking about it. In Luke chapter 5, we see Simon moving or casting his net into the sea, even though he had not caught anything the whole night of working. And we see that he catches more than enough. The net was breaking, the scripture says. Now that was a big miracle for Simon. He could have been so excited and saw what financial gains he would be getting. But what happens in Simon's life is something that we need to contemplate and meditate. The miracle that he sees moves him to realize who God is and where he stands. We see in Luke 5 verse 8, he says, when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, depart from me, I am a sinful man, O God. Oh Lord, depart from me. When he sees the miracle, a realization comes to him. The first realization was the grace of God. You see, the grace of God is experiencing the goodness of God even when you don't deserve it. Simon looked at the miracle and he felt he did not deserve to see such abundance or more than enough situation, a miracle. He did not deserve what he could see before his eyes. And that's what, when you look into our situations, when you look at how God works supernaturally around us, we need to realize that it's not because I am good that God does works, God does miracles. It's not because I have prayed that many hours that God has worked those miracles. It's just because of the grace of God over our lives. It's just that God chooses to be good to us, not because we've been good, but because He is good. It's the grace of God. Someone defined grace as God's riches at Christ's expense. God pouring out His riches on our life at Christ's expense. Because of Jesus, God's been good to us. So the realization that Simon Peter comes to is, I'm not worthy, God, but you have still shown me your grace, still shown me your goodness. But the miracle also moves him to a next realization. The second realization was of who he was. He says, when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. The second realization, he sees his weaknesses. He sees how unworthy he really is. And that's what we need to realize. When we go before God, it's not about how good you've been, but it's about how good God's been to you. None of us are perfect. We all have our weaknesses. We all have our failings. Only God is perfect. So when you see the goodness and the miracles of God, it's nothing that you need to boast about self. It's all about boasting in God. It's all about declaring the goodness of God. It's all about expressing how big your God is, how good, how amazingly gracious God is towards us. That God does not treat us the way we should be treated, but blesses us beyond what we have lived. You see, God's goodness is not based on how good you are, but based on His goodness. So when we go to God, we go through Jesus Christ, because through Jesus we are all found righteous. So when Peter sees the miracle of God, when he sees the miracles that the net is overflowing with fish, he comes to a realization how good Jesus is, how gracious Jesus is, and where He stands. Every time you go before God, we need to have that mindset that He is good, He is gracious. It's all about His grace. It's not about my good works. It's not about how holy I am. It's not about how big I am. It's not about how righteous I am. But it's all about Jesus. And when we stand before Jesus, we come not by the works that we have done, but by the work that He has done on the cross. Every miracle you see, it's not because you've been good. It's because God has been good to you.